everyone, it's Reagan and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be chatting through my October TBR. Obviously, I love to read. I love to read any month, any season, but there is definitely something special about October. I feel like the community and myself just gets really jazzed to make fun, extra, atmospheric, perhaps a little bit spooky, a little bit scary TBRs. It just fits the feel of the month and the season. I'm a little bit of a scaredy cat, so I definitely kind of approach it from more of an atmospheric scenario, but that doesn't mean I can't get into the spirit. And I had so much fun putting together this TBR this month. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into the books I hope to read. The first book that's on my list, I've technically already read. This TBR is going up a little later this month. I apologize. That being said though, I can definitely attest to the fact that this book was in fact perfect for the month of October and I really enjoyed it. I'll obviously give more details and a more thorough perspective of how I felt about the story at large in my wrap up, but for now, the book is The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. This is a dark historical fiction, horror, religious cult, Salem-inspired witch story. Again, as you can tell from all of those buzzwords, it's definitely a perfect Halloween read, and I can definitely say it delivered on the atmosphere, the suspense, and the mystery throughout the entire novel as well. This follows our main character, Emmanuel, who lives in this colony, settlement, town that is ultra-religious and is essentially ruled by one central figure called the Prophet. He essentially deems what's right and wrong, and obviously uses scripture and all sorts of different tactics to keep people in line and keep people down who don't serve him or his power. Emmanuel views herself as someone who is full of sin, and she's honestly just looking to keep her head down, save herself, and kind of just go about her daily tasks as a shepherdess and help her family. However, she is viewed as a bit of a pariah in town, not only due to her complexion, but also because of her mother's past as being condemned as a witch. And when the dark forest begins to start calling to Emmanuel, she kind of fights it and doesn't want to learn more about the mystery of her mother and kind of the dark secrets that hide within, but she can't help herself, and then so begins this wild tale of plagues and blights and corrupt government and politics. It is a wild, truly atmospheric, witch-filled ride, and it was definitely one that was at the top of my TBR for the month, hence why I've already read it. But yeah, this is the first book on my TBR. 'Twas great. Next book on the list, I am also part of the way through, and that is Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. I'm hoping to continue my reread of the Stormlight Archives ahead of the release of the fourth book coming out later this year. I read about 200 pages of this book last month. I didn't get as far as I would have liked, especially because I was hoping to finish it, but hey, I'm not gonna be hard on myself here. I'm just gonna continue persevering. I'm definitely loving this reread, and it's definitely something I needed to do as I have really honestly forgotten a lot. That being said, like any book I pick up by Brandon Sanderson, I find his prose incredibly engaging and his books are just so easy to fall into. I honestly say wholeheartedly do not be intimidated by the size of honestly any of Brandon Sanderson's high fantasy works. His writing, his characters, and his magic are incredibly approachable, so entertaining, and it's just a book that you ultimately will not want to put down. You should not be intimidated by anything. You should only be excited by the magic held within. But the Stormlight Archives and The Way of Kings is a multi-perspective start to an epic, ginormous series called the Stormlight Archive, which I obviously have loved all the books I have read so far, and I'm excited to venture into my reread. But this is a story set on kind of this sort of desolate landscape mostly, and kind of at the heart of this endless war and conflict between two people that has been going on for thousands of years. That's apparently going to bring about the end of the world. We follow a lot of different characters who have different roles within both the government and this conflict, or both present on both sides of this conflict. There's lots of magic, literally, as well as magical objects and armor and weapons. It's wild and it's so good, and I can't wait to continue this reread as I was really loving it. Yeah, so I definitely hope to finish this month as well. Next on the list is another book I have been holding off to pick up until October, and that is Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. This is a sci-fi, fantasy, necromancers in space sort of story. I'm hoping this is like a lot of fun, though I feel like I've seen a lot of comments being like, don't tell her. So it might also be gruesome and dark and maybe really depressing and not fun at all. But regardless, but the necromancer component is really what sold me here, and plus the main character just seems like just someone I really want to read from the POV of. But this follows our main character Gideon, who decides to flee her life and expectations of being a servant both in living and in the afterlife. She packs up her sword, she packs up her clothes and her dirty magazines, and she basically bounces from the convent where she has been raised her whole life. But then her arch nemesis, Harrowhawk, pursues her because she needs Gideon's sword and power to like help her political claims, as well as to like ascend to this really powerful level within like the necromancer politics. So I think this has a lot to do with that. I'm hoping there's just a lot of reanimated dead, antics, angst, you know, the whole 9 yards. So this is one I'm very excited to pick up. I also have the sequel on standby, so if I need to do a bit of a marathon situation, I am prepared. But yeah, this is one I've heard excellent things about. I think it was nominated for like Nebula Awards, the whole 9 yards, so I have very, very high expectations about this guy. Break up some of the death and destruction I am reading throughout the month. I wanted to pick up something a bit angsty, has a lot of romance, plus I know a lot of you guys love this book. I really wanted to do a reading vlog documenting my reading process of From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I've actually read quite a few Jennifer L. Armentrout books, and I've really enjoyed a lot of them. They're angsty, they're kind of ridiculous, but she can write just really good romantic character like suspense, and then just like ridiculous scenes that I personally find so entertaining. I love fantasy romance, paranormal romance, general romance. So this just felt like something that could be something really entertaining and that can break up some of my heavier reads this month. It's said to be perfect for fans of Sarah J. Maas, and it's said to be sexy, addicted, and unexpected. So all those things really call out to me, but this has a lot of like classic fantasy romance tropes. We follow a maiden who is kept in isolation, away from everyone, waiting for the day of her ascension. I'm not totally sure what that means. We also follow a guard who is sworn to protect her. There, I believe, kind of begins the romance situation, forbidden love, if you will, and then obviously a kingdom determined to tear them apart. So I feel like this is going to be angst times 100, and I cannot wait. This also has a sequel out, which just makes me all sorts of excited. And I've only heard exceptional things about this book, so I feel like this is going to be so much fun and really addicting. Like a book you read and you stay up till like 5 a.m. to finish. I feel like that is this. The next book on my TBR is one of my most anticipated books of the year, and another that I just feel like is so perfect to read during the month of October or just like the colder months. It's by one of my favorite authors of all time, and that is A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. This is really, I just gotta like shout it out more and more, is like I cannot articulate how excited I am to read this book. Spinning Silver, one of my favorite books of all time. So many of my favorite authors have blurbed this, from Catherine Arden to N.K. Jemisin. I just feel like this is going to be an atmospheric, dark academia magic school explosion that I just need in a book right away. But this is a story that follows the Sholomance, which is a very competitive, very deadly magic school, and we essentially follow a main character who enrolls within this academy. And this main character is not just any old student. She is the person that everyone expects, from teachers to other students, to turn into a deadly, world-ending witch. And there's also this like other character present at the school who's supposed to be a hero for the ages, and they're apparently supposed to like combat, but our main character doesn't want to fall into the tropes that she's expected to, or maybe she does. And I think that's kind of where the story begins to play out. Dark, mysterious, hyper-competitive, and deadly magic school setting. I cannot wait. I hope maybe they fall in love or maybe they kill each other. I'm not sure what I want, but all I know is I cannot wait to pick this up. I really feel like I'm gonna love this. So this is I'm definitely reading this book this month. From there, the next book should be no surprise, and that is Middlegame by Shannon Maguire. This has been on many a TBR, but this month I am truly actually going to read this book. I actually plan to bring this with me to when I go to a remote cabin in the woods. I feel like this is going to give me the best spooky, remote, will I die in the woods vibes that I'm kind of looking for. It's another dark fantasy story that has to do with alchemy and siblings that are kind of ascending to godhood but are not quite there. One of them is really skilled with language, and he sees and experiences the world through words, whereas his sister is really versed in mathematics, and that is how she kind of like understands the world around her. Both of them are kind of exploring their powers, and they have the ability to possibly ascend to godhood, but apparently we're not supposed to want that to happen. Here, this is dark, atmospheric, bizarre. I personally love really weird prose, especially when it comes to odd, dark fantasy stories. I'm just really drawn in by those kind of tales. So obviously I'm excited about this book. I've been wanting to read this book for months. October just felt right. So did A Desolate Cabin in the Woods. So this is that. It's gonna be great. Hopefully it doesn't scare me too much, but if it does, that's all right too. Next book on my list is another atmospheric fantasy story I've heard excellent things about. It's also a folklore retelling, which is one of my favorite types of fantasy stories out there. It's just a buzzword and kind of an auto buy and an auto read for me, but that is Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Morano Garcia. This is a book I've heard excellent things about. It was one of my like selections for You Choose by TBR and lost, but ever since I've just been thinking about it, looking at it on my bookshelf, and I just really want to read it. So that's why I added it to my October TBR for the month. But this is a fantasy story inspired by Mayan mythology and Mexican folklore. The book follows our main character Cassiopeia, and it's set during the Jazz Age, but our main character does not have time for the fun music and the roaring parties because she is too busy cleaning the floors of her grandfather's mansion. She dreams of a new life and adventure, and the opportunity begins to kind of present herself when she finds an odd wooden box in one of the rooms in her grandfather's house. She opens it and unwittingly releases a Mayan god from the past. There, she kind of joins him to help him possibly reclaim his throne. She begins this adventure and is starting to kind of get drawn to this god as well. I hear the writing of this book is mesmerizing and beautiful. I also hear there's this bizarre God, will they, won't they romance. It's always something I love to read within folklore stories. And honestly, I just feel like this is gonna be a book that I love. It has so many things I feel like that are just calling out to me, so I cannot wait to pick it up and read it this month as well. And the last book I hope to read is my nonfiction selection of the month, and I do already have the audiobook lined up on my phone, ready to listen to during my workday, or just in general as I listen to audiobooks throughout my day and month. But the book is The Inconvenient Indian, A Curious Account of Native People in North America by Thomas King. Thomas King is a well-known, very lauded individual within our world. He has written and spoken about Aboriginal and Native experience throughout his entire career, and this is one of his nonfiction works where he points to different historical moments and kind of rewrites it, and he's said to be very cutting, very brutally honest, and at times humorous. I've heard excellent things about this book. I hope to obviously read more books by Thomas King in the future, but I figured I would start with this one. I picked it up recently and I wanted to read it right away, so this is the last book I am reading for the month of October. Alrighty guys, those are all the books I hope to read during this month. Let me know down below some books you are wanting to read, as I would love to know. Give me all your spooky, scary recs. Unless they're too scary, then I don't want to hear about them. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you soon with another video soon. Goodbye!